Today's episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast is brought to you by AOS Outdoor Kitchens. They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists. Welcome to another episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast. Today we are joined by Russ from the Rusty BBQ Company, who's talking all about his wonderful different rubs. But he'll go through all of that with us in a second. So without much further ado, here's Russ.
Hi, Russ. Welcome to the podcast. For anyone that doesn't know you, please introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. My name's Russ, and I am owner of the Rusty BBQ Company.
Cool. And if you don't know what that is, get it in your life. Pause right now, get on Instagram, have a look on there, do a Google, but you must have seen some of these rubs around. Talk us through, how did this originally start up?
Great question. Do you know what? It's similar to a lot of people, I think, the story. And I've always loved cooking, and I've always loved barbecuing and outdoor cooking. And, we used to have the drunken weekends with friends coming round, and we throw some stuff on the barbecue. We try a bit of sort of low and slow smoking. And I just got a real buzz for it years ago and started playing with kind of different flavors myself on the meats that I was cooking up for friends, and the feedback I got was phenomenal. And people were like, you should really think about going into business or selling this. And I blew it off for years and didn't think much of it until a friend of mine sort of said, I'm really interested in buying some of your stuff. Can I buy some off you? And it kind of organically grew from there. I sold a couple to a mate at knockoff prices, the cost of ingredients. And then his friend contacted me. He was like, "Oh, I was around at Joe's the other weekend. Loved it. Would I be able to get some from you?" And I thought, okay, maybe we need to do something here. And that's how it started. And we kind of went from there, really.
How long ago did you launch?
So 2016, we formed the business, and that's when it went from being a little mess about to actually a fully fledged business. And yeah, it was a bit slow to start. The barbecue scene was only just starting to pick up back in those days. Social media wasn't as prominent as it is now. So getting out there and spreading the reach was really hard. But since sort of COVID kicked in and people started to stay at home or were forced to stay at home, I just found a natural elevation, and our business tripled during COVID, the quantities and volumes, and we've gone on to see that triple in size, for a triple in request pretty much ever since. And we're like I say, 2 or 3 times increasing business every year at the moment. We've just had our busiest, what I call off season, which we all know there isn't an off season in barbecue, but the winter time historically sort of dies off, but we just haven't seen it this year. People are barbecuing year round, and supply demand is there 24/7, 365 now, which is great.
It's one of those things where it's great that obviously everything tripled for you during COVID, but I'm sure that brings its own problems and kind of different solutions that need kind of building from that.
Pretty much, yeah. You go from being a kind of in your kitchen messing about to, crap, we need to do something here, or we need to look at ways of becoming more efficient, because as the demand increases, it just becomes harder and more time consuming to produce. So yeah, we invested in the business. We got some machinery involved. So we've got a blending machine, we've got a weighing and packaging machine that really helped streamline our process. And fundamentally, we moved from old style packets back in sort of 2018, 2019 into the shakers, which again speeds the process up a lot, because you can get a lot of bottles kind of wrapped really quickly with labels, with a simple labeling machine. And it just, it increased our capacity massively.
And are you still making it at home, or have you gone into a processing unit?
Not yet. We haven't. I've refrained. I've basically taken over the majority of the downstairs of the house, and we converted our garage into a blending studio. So I've got, a professional setup in there with all your stainless steel worktops. We've got all of our machinery in there. We've got a packing area boxed off down one end. So we've had to get some external storage for storing a lot of the rubs post make. But yeah, we're still doing it. It's got to the point now where we literally have no capacity left at home. So we're flirting with the idea of commercial premises, but it's taken that next leap. It's a big leap from a financial point of view, and yeah, I'm just kind of we're just toying and playing with that idea. Sort of round about Easter time, do we jump into commercial premises and go from there? Really,
because this is not your day job, right? This is something that's still on the side for you.
And yeah, I think that's a lot of people that work in the barbecue industry and in rubs in particular. They kind of do it on the side, and to make enough of a commercial model of it for it to become your living is extremely difficult. And I must admit, we're in a really fortunate position that myself and my wife, who she's the brains behind the organization, she does all the finances and all the funky stuff. I'm the crazy scientist that, you know, throws stuff together and creates the flavors. But we're staring down the brink now of this becoming our full-time careers and our full-time jobs, which is, you know, it is absolutely phenomenal. And I didn't envisage that a couple of years ago. So we've got a couple of tough decisions to make over the next 12 months. We've got to look at what we do from a funding point of view as well, and whether we self-fund and go out and take that risk, or whether we look at bringing in external funding. But it's a really, you know, it's a great problem to have, really exciting problem to have.
Who needs two kidneys?
You must be excited.
You know, who needs two kidneys? Sell one each. You're laughing, right?
Great thinking. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, there's a kidney rub or something, you know, if you want a bit of a savoury one.
Well, there you go. That we'll put that into fruition later this year.
The bin.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to say, you must be quite excited by that prospect. You said you've got some tough decisions to make, but you could be in a lot worse positions to actually, you know, so it must be quite an exciting challenge to have.
It is. And I think anybody who barbecues and anybody who loves cooking outdoors, it's a real escapism and a passion. And I still love doing it now. And, you know, your fantastic podcast on the Q Together mental health, a lot of people and the feedback that we've received is that is their safe space, going outside, lighting a fire, throwing something over coals, whatever it may be. And for me, the opportunity of taking this thing that is my happy place, my love, my passion, and potentially turning it into a career and into the livelihood is, yeah, it's hugely exciting. And a lot of blood and sweat and tears along the way. But yeah, it's exciting with a little bit of fear thrown in there as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, we're big fans. I've got quite a few of your rubs. I want to know, where do you get your inspiration from? You know, how do you just sit there and go, right, this is what I'm going to make? You know, where does that come from? I'm
a massive foodie, and I love eating various cuisines, and any opportunity I get to go to a different restaurant, I'll jump at the opportunity. And, you know, you take inspiration from some of the dishes you eat when you're out and about. I'm like most people, I'm addicted to Netflix shows around food as well. And, you know, you got the likes of the Taco Chronicles, which is hugely exciting. And that kind of really got me into a position of wanting to do a Mexican range, or bringing out the Mexican side of our rubs, which I went into and did. I started off very traditional. It was very kind of protein specific. So we've got what we call our core four, which are, you know, we got your chuck chalk for your chicken, hogwash for the pigs or the pork, cattle dust for cows, and a core powder, which is an all purpose. And that's how the business started. And I kind of enjoyed that, but the barbecue scene in the UK and the want to create a UK identity is becoming more and more prevalent as the years go on. So I'm just constantly watching out for trends in the food market. You know, I'm checking in on all the food programs to see what's hot and what's going on. And that's really where I get a lot of the ideas from. And yeah, just having a play really and trying something different. That's kind of it. I love experimenting. You know, we've got kilos and kilos of different spices and chilies and salts and all of that. And I can't sit still. So if I'm ever sat there and I've got 5 minutes, which is quite rare these days, I'll be in trying to throw something together and come up with a new concept or a new idea. So kind of a long way of answering, but I kind of draw from everywhere. I draw from TV. I try and keep up with the local trends that are going on, you know, keep in touch on social media to have a look at what people are cooking. And yeah, just try and sort of use all of those elements to bring a fusion of idea together and hopefully create something that is a little bit different.
Which rub came first?
Ooh, the chicken or the egg. It was the core four. So we put the core four together first. And again, that was drawn from my, when you start out in barbecue, we all look at YouTube, don't we? And you watch the various different influencers and the people that put on barbecue out. The majority of them back in sort of 2015, 2016 were American, using American style rubs. So that's what kind of gave me the want and the idea. We started off with very kind of what I call traditional type rubs, but I wanted to add a UK element to them. So we use British herbs in all of the rubs that we make. And, our hogwash, for example, is a very traditional, smoky, slightly spicy, a bit of ancho heat in there, but it's lifted with lovage, which is a bit of a medieval herb that you don't come across very often. And that's kind of where I wanted to go initially with the rubs, was that traditional feel with a bit of a chain, a bit of a slant, a bit of a UK element to it. And yeah, the core four were where it started. We ran with those for 12 months, and then I got itchy feet and wanted to play a little bit. So the kind of the creative juices flow from there.
Oh, I mean, the cherry cola rib and wing dust. I mean, that is a very sweet rub, right?
It is. It's one of my worst to make because it's such a fine blend of sugars that when you're putting it together, you have to literally have full on, hazmat suits on and face masks, because it feels carcinogenic. It's definitely not, I can assure you, but it gets in every orifice. And, the house always know when I'm making a blend or a batch of the cherry cola, because they'll be coughing and sneezing in sort of the rest of the house for the rest of the week. But it is, again, yeah, it's a hugely sweet rub. And that came from very traditional roots. So you look at a lot of recipes with ribs when they're done in like slow cookers, and you're cooking ham joints, you generally cook them in like a cola, or they've been known to be cooked in a cola. So I just had a bit of a play with that, and yeah, it came up with something that I wanted to be kind of a bit of an ambidextrous rub, something that you could put on your wings as a finishing dust, something across ribs to cook with, and yeah, it's something just a little bit sweeter than your usual. And yeah, it's a bit of a lip smacker, that one.
Oh, you can, yeah. So I've got it, and you can definitely smell it when you open it. It's a real potent smell. I actually cured some bacon with it.
Oh, how did that go?
I made a cure, and then just a very small amount, just to give it a flavour, and then I actually cold smoked it over cherry as well.
Oh, nice.
I was really happy. I mean, again, it's sweet bacon, but if you're having it like breakfast or pancakes, like an American style pancake with the smoked cherry wing dust bacon, it's spot on. So yeah, if no one's ever tried that before with it, it's an A+ from me.
Yeah, good stuff. Great on the Christmas ham as well. Another little one. It lifts the old Christmas ham a little bit as well.
So oh, sorry, go on. Dan, I was just about to say, Russ.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, with all the rubs that you've got, and what would you say is I'm sure you get this asked all the time, but what is your favourite rub?
It's exactly what I was going to ask.
Oh, okay.
It's like when somebody says, who's your favourite child? It's really bloody hard to answer that.
But you have one.
Can I narrow it down to a couple? I've got three that I'm really exceptionally proud of, and one of them was one of the first ever rubs that I made. So one of the core fours, and that's the Chuk Chalk, which is the chicken rub that we do. For some reason, it just, the families love it. My family love it. We're quite partial to a bit of a spatchcock chicken on a Sunday with some Hasselback potatoes, and the flavor profile, the lemon elements and the rosemary and the thyme really comes through in that rub. And I love that as an all day. And I even find if I'm having like soup on a lunchtime and I want to spice it up a little bit, that's my kind of go-to to throw a little bit into a boring chicken and vegetable soup or whatever to give it a bit of a lift. So that one is always going to have a special place in my heart as being like my first child. It was one of the first ones I created, but it's lasted the time. It's lasted since sort of 2014 when I first pulled it together. So the fact that it's still got a relevant taste profile now is, I'm exceptionally proud of. The other two, so I love beer. I think most people love beer, but I love like craft ales. And for me, I'm a massive IPA fan, and I've always wanted to do something in that space and thought, well, how can I create that in a rub form that could be, you know, we get the flavor profile transfer, but works across meat, because it's a unique flavor. And I played with a rub for 2 years that went on to become the IPA rub. And what it is all the elements you get from an IPA. So hops are in there, steamed hops, grapefruit, orange peel, lemon zest, a lot of these notes that you'd find within a really great craft beer, we've put into a rub. And, you know, really, really proud that we've won multiple awards for that one. And it's, you know, it was our first ever Great Taste 2-star winner that we got. And it draws the crowd. A lot of people, is one of our most popular rubs, that one, and people love it because of that connotation to the IPA. It's a great present to give to people as well, because it's, you're given a beer but you're not, you know, it's like getting the best of both worlds. So that I'd have to say has got to be up there as well, because it took so long to create, but I think, and I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but managed to capture the elements and the creative zinginess of a proper IPA and translate that into a rub. So that was my kind of, you know, where you've got like the project or the car in the garage that you know, an old Jag E-Type you want to try and restore, and you spend all your years doing it. That for me was my restoration, or my kind of go-to project, and took a long time to get right. And I think from start to finish, it took about 2.5 years to really nail the flavor profile of that one before I was in a position to sort of release that.
With all this that you've put together, and the
Yeah.
fact that consumers are obviously loving it, and you're seeing the huge amount of growth that you have done to the point where you're needing to make this next step, what about more kind of recognition in the cooking space and things? Have you gone forward with any awards or anything like that?
Yeah, so Great Taste has been a fantastic support for us as a business, and the Guild of Fine Food every year they do their Great Taste Awards, where you can enter your products, and it's not just about winning an award, but it's getting feedback on the products that you're putting in as well from seasoned experts, giving you creative feedback on your products. I feel is invaluable in this world, and you know, I can create rubs left, right, and centre, but they may be right for me, doesn't necessarily mean they're right in, you know, the hands of the experts. So to kind of put that out into the ether is great, and get that feedback. And you know, we've kind of presented a number of rubs over the last sort of few years, and we've been really fortunate. We've won 12 gold stars in total. Wow. With 2 of our products receiving 2 gold stars, which is really quite rare. And there's only a select few barbecue rub companies in the UK at the moment that are able to say that they hold that accreditation as well. So some really great organizations, and yeah, really proud to have been recognized with a couple of our products.
I mean, they're the biggest consumer food awards in the country. So that's a massive achievement.
Thank you.
You were about to say about a third rub. I think that you couldn't quite decipher if that was your favourite or not. What was the third rub you were about to say?
So the third one was, it's been referred to as Black Crack. And I know that sounds really bizarre. Dan Urban Streetery kind of absolutely came up with the name because he puts it on everything. And that is our Black Angus coffee rub. And that's a marriage of unique flavors. So we use Scottish wild garlic that we have dried down for us and sent down to us. And then we blend that with coffee, with Cornish sea salt, a few herbs and spices in there as well, just to give it a bit of a warmth, but activated charcoal as well. And when you were asking earlier on about how do you design a rub and come up with a rub, that one was an interesting one, because what you need to do when you come up with a concept is think of the end result and work your way back. That's how I do it. So you think of the protein that it's going to go with, and the Black Angus is clearly a beef rub. And you know, I was thinking things like beef ribs, putting it in burgers potentially, fantastic on things like your big briskets and your big hunks of beef. And what I wanted to do there was to create a rub that had all of these amazing flavor profiles, but also had the science behind it as well, in the compound build up and the ability for the rub to be absorbed into the meat and support the smoke creation, the bark creation. So that was a real scientific one for me. And again, very different from like the flavor driven side of the IPA rub, and a million miles away from the very first rub I came from, the reference to the Chuck Chalk. So yeah, that's probably my third favorite. And again, it's our bestseller now. It's absolutely flying off the shelves, and yeah, the feedback's been absolutely phenomenal on that one. So that's got to be up there as well as another favorite of mine.
Mentioning just then a few ingredients: Cornish sea salt, Scottish wild garlic, and you were saying about elevating kind of a British take on traditional American style rubs. Is British ingredients at the forefront of your choosing when it comes to creating these rubs?
Absolutely. I would not put, or I try and draw from local UK suppliers wherever possible. So, you can go out and get sea salt sort of shipped in from all around the world at ridiculously cheap costs. That's not what I'm about. I'm about the quality, and I'm a big believer that the quality and the love you put in, you get out the back end as a result. So yeah, I mean, I'm a hugely passionate Brit and follower and promoter of UK produce, and it's really important for me to carry that message through in my rubs as well. And yeah, all of our herbs we have made in the UK, or they're grown in the UK and then freeze dried specially for us. So yeah, any herb that I put in or any ingredient, I try and source in the UK where possible, but that's not always possible. You look at some of your chilies, for example, that you need to put in some of the rubs. You just cannot grow chilies effectively and cost efficiently in the UK for the quantities that we need for our rubs. So we have to import some of those. But again, my big push is on sort of small producers, and we actually use a small cooperative for our chilies, and they are a cooperative of ex-convict Mexicans of all people who have small chili farms based throughout Mexico. And yeah, we buy sort of direct from them. So I kind of feel like, although it's not a British ingredient, we're doing our little bit to help sustainability. We're doing our little bit to kind of help. And I'm a big believer that what goes around comes around. So, we get great products out the back end, but I also want to give back to the suppliers and use small and local people wherever possible.
Has this kind of journey also changed how you're barbecuing and how you're grilling at home?
Yeah, it kind of has. And I went through a period, and I've got to be really careful because I'm constantly working on something new. There's always a concept, or there's always a new rub ongoing, and I can find myself becoming a bit mechanical with my cooking. And that is, I cook to test a rub, which is, it was brilliant for the kickoff of the business, but it took until lockdown for me to kind of take a step back and think, well, hang on a minute, I'm not cooking for fun at the moment. I'm cooking because I'm doing, or because I'm trialing, and everything had a photograph taken, and concepts and notes were taken down after every meal, and that kind of took the fun element out of it for me. So during lockdown, like most people, I had a great opportunity to take a step back and readdress the way that I was living and what I was doing, and made a pact with the family that we do more family style barbecuing, more sort of home style cooking, and focusing more on the enjoyment factor rather than the mechanical element of cooking. And yeah, I must admit, I fell out of love with barbecuing, but it became a necessity sort of pre-COVID. And if there are any glimpses to take out of COVID, that's the one thing that I will take away, that it kind of reset my cooking focus and allowed me to take a step back and start enjoy cooking again. And today I love watching social media to see what everybody else is doing, and I try and copy ideas, replicate ideas. Social media is such a massive kind of hub of information for people these days that I kind of feel like I'm back in love with it now, and I want to try all these new things. And I know I'm going to sit down this evening and see what people were cooking over the weekend, and there's going to be 2 or 3 things that I'm gonna want to cook. So I've kind of been on a bit of a journey with the cooking side of things, I must admit.
What is your setup at home in terms of your barbecues? What's your kind of go-to grills?
Wow. So back in the early days when we started up, we actually added a catering arm to the business. So we did a bit of catering on the side as well. And that was heavily around your low and slow smoking. So at one point we had 8 Smoky Mountains sat out in the back garden that we had set up to cook things like your briskets and pork butts and things like that. We invested heavily probably about 4 years ago now in an old hickory CTO that we used for our commercial. And that was amazing. A big American pit that was, 150 kilos in weight and was raw iron. You could run it off of gas if you wanted to do an overnight guaranteed, or you can, burn it through wood and coal. And I loved using that. But when COVID hit, we decided to put a stop in the catering side of the business because it was not a time for any sort of catering business to really kind of prosper. So we took a step back, and we actually made the decision to kind of take a step out of catering at that point. And that's when I got to play. That's when I said, right, let's settle this commercial stuff and let's get sorted with some stuff of our own. And I'm a Kamado Joe fan. I've got a Kamado Joe. I've still got a Smoky Mountain, but I think that's nostalgic more than anything else. I've got a couple of Weber Master Touches, which I rotate and go to. I've actually got one out of the mother-in-law's because, you need to have a barbecue where you go and stay sometimes, don't you? So
yeah, definitely.
Got one of those. I love family style pizzas. So we've got a pizza oven as well. We've got a rock box, which gets a lot of use when the evenings are a little bit lighter. Wow, I've got a flipping heck. I'm trying to remember it all now. I hope the wife isn't listening. We've got a Ranger as well, a Traeger Ranger, a little Ranger that we cook on and like cooking breakfasts on. And yeah, that's really the main setup at the moment. But I'm finding it really hard to step away from the Kamado Joe or the Master Touch. They're really my go-to pieces at the moment. And I'm just hoping in the next 12 months to add a fire cage or a live fire element to the cooking arsenal as well.
It's a never-ending thing, isn't it? There's always something that you want.
Oh, do you know what? I was looking at those Ninjas the other day, and people are raving about those new Ninjas, aren't they? I'm like, I don't need one, but I need one at the same breath. And you're already thinking, where can we get the money from, to add something else? Or how can I hide this one from the family without them realizing? It is, though. It's a never-ending stream. There's new technology coming out, new grills. And yeah, I'm sure I'm like most people out there. I get really excited and geeked out by that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I'm already looking at the next, and then it won't be long and there'll be another piece and another piece, I'm sure.
See, there's Ninjas, like, I don't know if you've had this, Owen. I've had 2 or 3 friends contact me and be like, get this, review this, put it up because we want to know. And it feels like it's exploded from nowhere. Because I know that Ninja will be doing more and more, but it feels like almost overnight there was an embargo or something lifted, all of these dropped. But with the contacts you've got, Russ, surely you're going to get a chance to have a play with one of those sooner rather than later.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I mean, we've got some great connections in the business and some great connections in the industry for sort of trialing and playing with stuff. And I know that I can pick up the phone and pop round to someone's house or, head down to Country Wood Smoke and see Mark, whatever it may be, go and get access to it. My problem is I'm restricting myself because if I go and play, I'll want to buy. And that's the problem. It's like when we were at Sizzle Fest last year, and we had the Q Together tent there, and the guys from TMG gave us this massive, great offset smoker to cook with. And again, I'd never considered getting anything like that until I had the option to play with it, and then it was like, I need this in my life. Luckily, I haven't sold a kidney yet to be able to afford to go and do that, but it's. Yeah, I have to be a bit careful. I could play with more equipment, but if I play, I'm more likely to buy. So self-preservation, I think, more than anything.
I'm surprised that Dom let you have a go on it. He was pretty much glued to it all day.
Oh, I say I had a go. I kind of looked from a distance and just watched what he was doing. Although I think he broke it towards the end of the day. So old heavy-handed klutz over there, bless him.
That was the handle, wasn't it, that he was trying to basically hide that he'd pulled it off.
It was the unbreakable pit. He broke it. Yeah.
Lad.
Yeah.
If you've been looking or thinking about an outdoor kitchen, then look no further than AOS Outdoor Kitchens.
They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.
Their extensive showroom is based just outside Bournemouth on the Dorset-Hampshire border, and as well as numerous in-store displays, also features a live outdoor kitchen where they cook every week on Kamado grills, pizza ovens, and all filmed and shown on YouTube.
They offer a wealth of knowledge on how to transform your patio into the most incredible outdoor dining area with styles and options to suit every budget. And you can guarantee they will be able to create something perfectly suited to you and your home.
They stock and supply everything that you're going to need for outdoor cooking, including barbecues, Kamado ovens, pizza ovens, outdoor fridges, and every accessory that you would need to become the ultimate outdoor chef.
So if you want to make yourself the envy of your friends and neighbours, get in touch with them today to arrange a consultation and take the first step in transforming your back garden into the most incredible entertainment space.
Visit aoskitchens.co.uk. So one of the things we really hold dear on the podcast is about barbecue fails. So this could be in your commercial side or just at home with the family, but just tell us a story or two of when barbecue hasn't gone so well for you.
Oh, God, there are so many. And do you know what? Social media, we're all great at posting these pictures of our amazing cooks and, you know, our triumphs. Very rarely do people put up the fuck ups or the things that they really get wrong. I've had so many. I mean, there are a few that really spring to mind. We were catering for a food festival a few years ago, a few years before COVID, when we were using our Smoky Mountains setup. And I'd went out and I'd lit all the Smoky Mountains on an evening. It was about 6 o'clock. And I thought, okay, you know, we need to be leaving the following day. I need to have sort of 18 pork butts and 12 briskets ready to go. So I got all the timings right. I got all the heats up to the right temperature, kind of put them in. Didn't use any of these fans or anything like that, any of the kind of the plugins. I'm a big fan of just letting the fire do what it does. And there's one of your big mistakes. So overnight cooks, I always find really difficult. And I used to stay up and, you know, before you know it, the weekend goes by and you haven't had any sleep. This occasion, I chose not to. I thought, what's the worst that can happen? You know, the Smoky Mountain, it holds its temperature well. I've never had any problems. It generally works absolutely fine. Don't know what the fuck happened during the night, but something must have happened to the wind or the air circulation around them. But they all dropped off massively. So when I went out in the morning, every pork butt had failed to come out of the stall. And I was like, well, crap, we've got a couple of hours left to get this sorted and get into a position where we can, you know, present something. Yeah, that was a tough one. That was ringing around everybody we knew to borrow their ovens, to stick it in the oven, to try and, you know, leapfrog these pork butts and get them to a position. So yeah, I was not proud of that we had to go to a food festival with slightly, well, it was smoked pork butts, but finished in an oven. Yeah, I must admit, I've never left an overnight cook on its own after that. That's
no, I don't blame you.
One of the
It's
big
a difficult
ones.
one, isn't it? Because it's meant to be like the golden thing of stick it on, or off you go, leave it overnight. But I haven't had it been that bad. My problem normally with overnight cooks is the opposite. I feel like I set in the Kamado and I watch it for an hour or two and it's fine, go to bed, and then something flares up somehow and I get up in the morning, it's gone up by like 20-30 degrees and you're just praying that hasn't destroyed what's inside.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. Yeah, I don't know what happens. It must be like the barbecue fairies, that you disappear and they just decide to have a piss about with your equipment. It's always the way.
You said that you've still got a Smoky Mountain, so you've had that for quite a while.
Yes, yeah.
I've got a Smoky Mountain as well. And just out of interest, on my thermometer no longer goes below 75 degrees. It's freezing cold outside, and it still says it's 75 degrees, even though there's nothing on. Has your temperature gauge stayed all right? And when you had quite a lot of them, did they always stay all right?
So I upgraded the gauges on them because we were using them for commercial smoking. I upgraded to slightly stronger, slightly more consistent thermometers. So yeah, I can't say I've had that problem, but I have heard it a couple of times with people. They say that they struggle with the range. It doesn't always reset itself effectively. So you can pick up aftermarket ones dead cheap, to be fair. Might be worth an investment.
Yeah, just out of curiosity more than anything else. But
yeah,
there we are. So you mentioned earlier on that you're always tinkering. There's always projects on the go. I appreciate you probably can't share all your secrets, but at least give us one. What's happening for 2023 that you can tell us about?
Okay. Yeah, I'm quite an honest person. And, I've had my fingers bitten a couple of times when I've been on a couple of lives in the past and spoken about rubs that were coming out. And lo and behold, the following week, somebody releases a rub that is very similar to the type of one. Now, that could just be a coincidence, but the skeptic in me says not. But I'm an open book. I'm quite happy to talk about my stuff. And we've got a couple of big ones this year. I've had a want to create a curry type rub for a while, or something that could be used in a curry setting. So I love Sri Lankan food. So I'm really working hard at the moment on a Sri Lankan curry, which is going to have roasted spices. So it's going to be a dark Sri Lankan curry. It's going to be very dark brown, slightly tobacco-y in sort of compound and smell, but lifted with lots of curry leaves and sweetened with tamarind. So working on that one as we speak, and that's almost at the point of ready to go, which is good. So that should be out hopefully in the next few months. I'm working on something with truffle in it, black truffle, which I'm not going to give any more away, because this one is another one of those that's taken a while to get to anywhere near like a product. So there could be something truffly coming out this year.
That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, I'm quite excited about that one. It's going to be something a little bit different, something a little bit unique. And yeah, the first real sort of what I class as gold or platinum style rub. It's not going to be a cheap one, but it's going to be something a bit special for when you want that special cook doing.
Yeah.
So watch this space on that. Oh, what else have we got? Last year, we were really fortunate, 21, really fortunate to work with the Lions, the rugby, the commercial team over at the Lions rugby setup. And we produced a braai spice for the World Cup, a South African braai. And, the rub got rave reviews. So although it was only a temporary rub at the time, we're going to re-release that year under our branding and away from the Lion stuff now, which we're quite excited to get out there because we get a lot of people asking about it. And there might be some Latin American style things coming your way as well. So I've got about 5 or 6 concepts that I'm working on at the moment. And it's all about when we release them, and what gets released first will be the fun bit.
Wow. Busy 2023 then, for sure.
It really is. But what people don't realize as well is we do a lot of white labeling for other brands and for other companies. So we create rubs that are branded by other companies. And, we've got 12 customers at the moment that we do that for. And, I've got 2 more inquiries come through in the last week about doing that. So there's another element of creation there, which flirts with my kind of creative side. I said earlier on, I'd like sitting still for 5 minutes, so that'll keep me busy. But there's not just the commercial rubs that we release. We've obviously got all this work that we do behind the scenes and mass produce rubs for other companies as well. So another complexity to throw in the mix. But I was going
to say, because I suppose you have exactly what they want, but it could potentially be something similar to what you want to create. So you must have to make sure there's distinct differences between what you actually end up producing.
Very much so. I'm a science geek. I love the science of barbecue rubs. And a couple of years ago, I started releasing some snippets about the science of barbecue rubs and what goes into the concept and the build-up. And one thing I do when I'm working with other companies is I geek out on that side of things and, really get to understand what companies are looking for, what flavor profiles. And I don't take our rubs and kind of alter them to make them fit. I always start afresh with any customer and create rubs their way, which is great because sometimes I can get some influence on some of the rubs that I'm creating as well. So yeah, a nice little arm to the business, that one.
With so many rubs, if someone was doing like a vegetarian or like a vegan barbecue for people, what would you recommend looking at your rubs that they do to elevate it, maybe bring in some more of the kind of meaty kind of flavors to really give people something a bit different? Because it can be hard to nail those type of dishes.
Yeah, it really can. And it's all about the umami. And we've heard this word, it's been thrown around for a number of years now. And it's that the fifth sense, the fifth taste, the kind of the concept of like the deep richness you get from a meat, being sort of from other sources, and that's something that I've been playing with over the last few years, is getting that right. And what you'll find in some of our later rubs that we released over the last couple of years is that we've tried to build in that concept and create that so that our rubs are 100% vegan, apart from one or two of them, are suitable for vegetarians, but lift and elevate, not just meats, but vegetables, all these other fantastic ingredients that you can use and sort of take them to the next level. And it's actually something I want to do a lot more of this year, is cooking with vegetables and trying to cut out the meat. And trying a few more. Vegan food is everywhere at the moment. And, I know it gets a lot of negative connotations and stick, vegan food and vegans in particular, but some of the meals that are produced and some of the alternatives are absolutely fantastic. So I think we need to start looking as a UK barbecue scene at incorporating that into what we do. But yeah, to kind of answer your question, finding that umami flavor is particularly tough. It's, getting the right ingredients. Like we've started using red miso, dried red miso is one of our ingredients to help elevate that umami flavor. Soy sauce powder is another one that we use. We use yeast powder, which has kind of got your Marmite taste a little bit, that adds that complexity. Mushroom powder is another great one for adding that element. And yeah, it's about matching the flavors with the thing you're cooking, if that makes sense, and knowing what flavors go with what. And that's the hardest thing from my point of view, is releasing a rub that we can say is just for vegetables, because we don't want it to be just kind of one dimensional. We want it to work across multiple different sort of ingredients. But yeah, we've been working really hard with that concept over the last 12 months. And, a couple of the rubs that we're coming out with this year will be slightly different in ingredient setup, because we are going for that bold sort of whack of flavor, whereas years gone by you would have got that from things like your sugars, your salts, your paprikas and your chilies. We're now having to look at other ingredients to lift, so that people can translate that flavor profile across into vegetables, tofus, all that sort of stuff.
Talking about ingredients, I think this is probably a good time for us to go into our barbecue bingo challenge. Barbecue bingo is brought to you by Lumberjack Food Company, your ticket to Flavortown. So if I share my screen, Russ, what we'd like you to do is, it's a very high-tech spinning wheel. I know, right? It's taken us hours and millions of pounds to put this together.
Love it.
So we've got a list of ingredients here. We're going to give it a spin. Whatever it lands on, we'd love for you to cook something with that ingredient.
Absolutely.
There's two things here. There's my signature dish. So if it lands on that, we'd like you to cook your signature dish. What are you known for? What would be your signature dish?
Pulled pork is kind of a go-to, and it's the thing that when we were catering, we were pulled up on as being exceptional. And we get requests from mates now to cook pulled pork for them that they can bung in their freezer or use at dinner parties. So I think that's probably an old traditional pulled pork is probably the signature.
Fantastic. And just before we spin this, what we've been doing with every guest that's come onto the podcast is we've got them to leave an ingredient for the next guest in the hope that they land on that. So,
oh wow!
So half of this list has been left by previous guests. So have a little think about what you'd like to include on this while I give it a spin.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what would be the most interesting thing for you have to do. Something like chocolate buttons, I think, would be fun.
That'd be a bit harsh, wouldn't it? Damn it!
I can't remember who left chocolate buttons.
I know, right? I know.
It was left by a guest, so chocolate buttons is an interesting one. I'm
going to have to go back through and see who that was now and send them a little irate message on their DMs.
That looks set up now, doesn't it? How that even happened?
Do you know, but that doesn't scare me though, because chocolate and the foundations of chocolate and cocoa, huge in Mexican cooking. And I've got a couple of ideas that spring to mind. So yeah, I can have some fun with that.
I always put dark chocolate in chili. I love making a chili with dark chocolate. Just finish it off the last 15 minutes or so. You put some really heavy kind of 90% like chocolate in there. It's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
it's the tanning pulls through a different level, doesn't it? It just elevates the flavour. Totally agree with you. Totally
gloss
agree
as well.
with you.
It gives it a different look and a feel and a sheen as well to the actual chili, which again you do eat with your eyes as well as your mouth, I guess, is the word that should follow with that.
That'd be a very different conversation post beer.
Yeah,
it would. What ingredient would you like to leave for another guest?
Oh, I'm just having a look. I don't think it's on here. I have an ingredient that I love that I've not really played with on the barbecue, so I'd be really intrigued to see what somebody would do with this, and that is the artichoke.
Yeah, we don't have that on there.
Oh, can't spell it.
Artichoke.
It's an arty chick. That's my wish list.
It's what you're asking Santa for this year.
Yeah, that's it. It's a different spinning wheel. There we are, artichoke. That's a good one. I don't think I've ever cooked with artichoke.
I like it on pizza. Have you chucked it on pizza before?
No.
I had it. We went to Venice years ago when I was at university, and classic kind of all in Italian and not really paying attention. And we're like, oh, I'll just go for a random one. And I ended up with an artichoke pizza. Thankfully, wow. I enjoyed it. Whereas my father-in-law literally was just speaking to this guy and was like, I just want pizza and chips. I just want pizza and chips. And the guy's like, okay, fine. Pizza comes out and it's just all they've done is literally put like sauce on there, chips, cheese, whacked it through. But yeah, that's quite a good thing. I'd recommend people trying.
Yeah, there
Isn't
you go.
Isn't it like an aniseedy flavour, artichoke?
No, not quite. You're thinking of fennel.
Yeah, like artichoke's more kind of. I mean, I guess most of the artichokes that I have been brined, so that's it. But kind of like an acidic kind of earthy kind of flavour to them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard to describe the flavour of them, isn't it, really? They're, like an earthy, almost a cross between a root vegetable flavour and maybe like a cabbage or something like that. It's kind of an in-between the two from a flavour point of view. But let's see if someone gets that. It's got to be better than bloody chocolate buttons, though, right? Cheers, lads. Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
All I do is just cut the thing open and just hopefully just get some smoke in it. Have a bag of smoked chocolate buttons.
Oh, there you go.
Cold smoke. We didn't say you can't code smoke.
No, very true.
Yeah.
One thing that we've mentioned once or twice, but kind of skirted around is, of course, we did the mental health special with the rest of the guys behind Q together, but you weren't able to make that. So it would be great to kind of get your perspective on that side of the story, and also give you the chance again just to hammer home that message as well, if you're happy to go into all of that.
Yeah, by all means. Q Together is something that's really close to my heart. And, when I set out on this business journey years ago, and, you go through the years, your business gets to a certain size, and I started to look at brand ambassadors back at the beginning of COVID, and I was really lucky to get Dan, Urban Streetery, Barbecue Tom, Cornish Carnivore on side and become brand ambassadors with me, and we became really great mates really quickly, and we opened up to each other quite a lot. And I think one of the kind of the strands of kind of similarity we all had is that we were all carrying baggage. We all had emotional problems, or we had weights that we were carrying on our shoulders, and we weren't very good at talking about it. And I went through a really dark phase in COVID, and I was I felt quite isolated. I was lucky because I've got, a loving family. My parents and my brothers and sisters are brilliant. I'm married to an amazing woman, and I've got 3 amazing children. So in the grand scheme of things, I've got nothing to kind of feel isolated from. But back in that early day, I felt really isolated, especially during winter time. And the only thing that used to make me feel better was just lighting a flame. And I didn't necessarily have to cook. And I just started playing with that idea. I thought, well, if I'm feeling a bit down, well, there must be other people out there as well who are feeling a bit isolated, and it kind of, the idea stemmed from there. And spoke to Dom and Dan and Tom, and we started throwing ideas around, and we flirted with a couple of events where we had a big light a flame for mental health, which was the very first thing that we did as kind of a Q together push, and that's where we got people from all around the world. It ended up being kind of lighting a flame in solidarity, letting people know that there is a community should anybody ever need to talk. And it's kind of grown legs from there. And the more that we've played with this concept, the more that we've floated the ideas, the more people have come to us and said, thank you so much, because I had nobody to talk to. I'm not going to go into specifics, but I had a guy contact me. He's like, I'm really sorry, I don't know you, but I saw that you're running mental health with barbecuing. I'm a massive barbecue fan, and I feel like life is getting too much for me at the moment. And I just opened up a conversation and had a 3-hour-long call with this guy who I'd never met from Adam before. And, I'm a mental health first aider, so I've got some understanding of mental health awareness and not necessarily to treat. But it's not about that. It's not about having the answers. It was about creating a space for people to reach out. And that's just grown. We've had multiple people contacting us, and the feedback after your podcast, when we did the guys, and I unfortunately couldn't make it, the Q Together one, the reach has just elevated again. And, we've been inundated with people contacting us saying, not only I'm struggling, I need some help, but people saying thank you for bringing this to the forefront and, opening a whole world or a whole conversation amongst men in particular, because hey, we're blokes, right? We don't, we don't talk about this sort of stuff. We just bottle it all up until something explodes. So, yeah, it was kind of born out of kind of our own insecurities, our own baggage, our own issues, and never realized for a minute that the kind of the reach would be so huge, and everybody's got a story about somebody that's been impacted, if not them, or they know somebody that has sadly taken their own life because they've had no avenues to be able to go out and talk, and that's what me, Dan, Tom are doing now, is creating a place that we hope at least, even if it's one person has an avenue or someone to go and talk to, they can use the Q Together hashtag to see that there is a whole wealth of a community of people out there who are willing to help them and support them, and that they don't need to suffer in silence, whether they know them or not.
It makes such a difference to people as well, because it, as you said, it can be so hard for people to talk out about these sorts of things, particularly with the British stiff upper lip and everything. And so giving people an avenue, even just to see other people using that hashtag, I think can make a big difference to someone, particularly on a bad day.
Yeah. Oh, it really can. And, the reach of it has been ridiculous. I think the last count, there was 17 different countries. People from 17 countries have used the hashtag Q Together, from Canada to Mexico. We've got Argentina, Germany, all around Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and one in Japan as well. It's gone out global, which is phenomenal. But I think it's almost become a bit of a symbol for, I understand mental health is a big thing, and it's not necessarily I've got issues myself, but I'm accepting of the fact that we need to talk more about it as people, and that for me is absolutely huge.
Well, it was an absolute pleasure to discuss it, and for us it was important, just as important, to kind of have you and everyone else come on and talk about it, to spread the message. Just as much as you guys wanting to set it up and kind of help people in the first place. I think if we can all kind of do our bit to push that message forward, then there's, people don't have to suffer in silence.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, your support around it has been absolutely huge. So again, thank you to the Meet and Greet podcast and both of you guys for helping us to platform it and take it to that next level as well. We hugely appreciate it, really do.
I'm more than happy to be part of it,
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Is there anything that perhaps we haven't spoken about yet that you want to kind of bring up? We always give guests an opportunity to bring up anything that they want to.
Yeah, well, the rugby's not going very well at the moment, is
No,
it? We won't
no,
talk about
no,
that.
no,
Jesus
no,
Christ.
no.
We could do a whole nother show on that shit.
No,
show.
Oh,
no.
God. Not
I'm on strike talking about the Welsh rugby team. I don't care what they're doing. I'm just not being involved at all with that.
Do you know what, though? To be fair, the only thing that I want to say is that there is a community of rub producers in the UK now, and we saw that increase a little bit during COVID, which is great. It's given people a platform to be able to do that, and we've got some really great producers in the UK. I'm not going to call them out because I'll probably forget some, but Poppy's been doing amazing things over at Norfolk Smoke Pit. You've got the guys at Lumberjacks who are just making waves at the moment in what they're doing. There's a whole load of different companies out there that are really coming together. And again, like I said, I'm not going to go through them all because I will inevitably forget somebody, but I just appeal to everybody to, before you look at importing rubs over from America, try some of the UK stuff, because we got some bloody fantastic producers now. And I'm really proud to be part of that community, creating a UK barbecue scene and producing rubs that, are world class. And if not, in my books, better than some of the stuff that you can get over from the States. So yeah, support your local UK producers. That's to the other point that I want to make, really.
Well said by British.
Exactly.
Great. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the podcast, Russ. And one last time, please let everyone know where they can find the Rusty BBQ Company.
Yeah, definitely. So we're on Instagram at the Rusty BBQ Co, the Rusty Barbecue Co, or head over to our website, which is www.therustybbarbecueco.com. Sign up to our newsletters. We don't spam people, but if you want to know what's going on with latest rub releases and things like that, Instagram or our website are the best places to go. And yeah, go and try some of our stuff if you haven't already.
Do you know what? Owen and I did, and we put it on Instagram as well. 2 Christmases ago, went around Owen's and we did a load of chicken wings. And like, I loved the core powder so much, so much, and the chuck chalk, but the core powder in particular. Go try it, guys.
Get involved. Yeah, get involved.
But just like the Welsh rugby team now, we're going to let you go and bottle it. And yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to come on. It's been great speaking, Russ.
That's it for another episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue Podcast. Thanks so much to Russ for coming on and talking to us about his barbecue journey or barbecue business journey and how he makes rubs and the science behind it. But also kind of rounding that off, again, talking about mental health and how we should get out and talk to each other and how we use barbecue as a tool to kind of help us. As ever, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you want us to talk about on the podcast. So please do get in touch with us through our usual channels, social at Meet and Greet Barbecue Podcast, meetandgreetbarbecuepodcast.com. And until next time, keep on grilling. Today's episode is brought to you by AOS Kitchens, the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.